Very good afternoon to everyone. I welcome you all back to this MTACTIQ marketing podcast brought to you by School of Business and Management, Christ University. Today we have with us Mr. SAI KRISHNA RAO, who is the Senior General Manager for Education at Schneider Electric. The topic for this podcast is how creating value can be the most powerful context for sales growth for any organization. Very good afternoon, sir. Glad to have you here. So could you please explain a bit more about the topic? What does that exactly say?
Very good. So, thank you first of all giving me an opportunity to come and talk to you about this subject. This is very dear to me. Simply for the reason is that today, if you see the way business is held, is more of oriented towards making profits, which is a default context. Definitely, all businesses are supposed to generate profits. But if you see the game that's happening around in the world, this context of making business out of for profits only as a matter of context has a certain repercussions on the environment, on the people who do business, etc., etc. So I thought I will address this subject matter, that what if we can shift this context of driving business only from a profit making as a default context to something very larger, such that it makes a larger difference to the world, for the organizations, and for the people that work for such organizations. So, coming back to the point, if you want to say more, the default context, as I said, is profits, or being the largest companies in the world by volumes of business that you do, etc., becomes a different context, right? Now, what is the impact of running businesses only from that context? It actually reduces the sensitivity of the organization uh, to understand and deliver on customer needs, right, or market needs, um, and also reduces the sensitivity to sense the evolution that happens in the market. So you can see the impact of that is most companies, there is a study done by MITs, on an average, an organization's lifespan is limited to only 40 years. Okay, any organization. So you can say average only 40 years in the world. Why? Because their ability to sense what's evolving, what's needed in the market, is somewhere getting lost or not seen because of this drive for making profits. Profit becomes the only motive for doing it. So that's one thing. Second is, uh, it's the business then becomes only about pushing, increasing volumes, increasing the reach, because more money, some limits, more money you want to do, then you want to do more business, more of volume. So that becomes a driving factor. And the strategy in that kind of business is to watch competition. What is the competition doing? They only focus on competition, and they want to position their products and solution against competition. So again, what's needed in the market, what needed by customer is blindsided, right? And then the business becomes creating more market share. Right? That's how it drives. Now, very surprisingly, it impacts profitability. While the context is to make profits, but the way that when you make profit as a context, it actually reduces profitability because you're not innovating anything more, right? You are trying to make more pie in the get more pie in the more share in the same pie. So then you reduce your prices, you cut down costs, stuff like that. So it actually impacts your profitability by itself. And if you look at the experience of people working in this organization, they're very stressed out. Every year you're told, okay, do more, now do more, and do more, and do more. So it becomes very impersonal. The culture becomes very impersonal. You can't do it, I'll get somebody else to do it. You see? And so it's stressed out, burnout, and there is no joy of working. If you look at a human being's life, is not about working for 30 years in an organization, doing some activity, getting money, but not having joy of it. Everybody wants a joy of working, right? But this context of running businesses only for profits, right, takes that joy out. because human beings don't operate for that. Ultimately, money is one thing, definitely, but there are other things that they would like to do. And the underlying key thing that I want to put there is human beings get inspired when they actually start contributing. And that takes away out when we make the default context of doing business only for profits. Now, when you shift the context to creating value, now that's what I want to talk about today. To creating value, then it's a different ballgame altogether. If you are orienting your organization to only focus on my organization or our organization is about creating value to the society, creating value to my users or to the market, then it's a different ballgame. First, what you'll be interested is to know what is needed and required in the market. So your focus is on what is needed and required here. What if is provided will make a real difference. So the focus shifts from I want to make money to what is needed, what is really interested there, right? Then what then it creates it or it inspires. It inspires the creative faculty in everybody. See, one of the things that inspires creative faculty is, the necessity is the mother of invention, they say, right? That's what, so invention happens from something that's needed. So your creative faculty opens up, right? So that's what it does, and it creates innovation. It becomes a bed for innovation. You shift from being a seller of a product, right, to being a partner with the customer to fulfill that need. So it's a huge shift. So you go and sell, I have this, can you buy? From point called, what is it you'd like to have? If I give you, that'll make a difference. And then I offer something to you, you suddenly look at me as your partner for that. Right? You don't look at me as a seller. And I'm going to share with you later how it has made a difference in our businesses that we do at Schneider. Personally in the business I do, or some other companies that they do it as well. Okay, so you shift from a seller to a partner. The outcome is you create value to the customer, and your businesses become an outcome of that. That is, your profits, your growth becomes an outcome of creating value, and that's a completely shift in the context. Okay, and therefore it creates higher returns on sales. Very surprisingly, when you create value, the customer want to give you more because he gets contributed, he wants to contribute to you. So your returns on sales actually turns out more when you do from this context rather than from the earlier context of making profits. Yeah. So that's what I meant by saying that, and of course, surprisingly, it reduces competition as well because what you're going to offer is offering unique.
Yes.
What you want. Say, I'm offering what you want, which is so unique, and therefore your competition is not there. Right? You don't have to worry about competition.
Okay.
And lastly, the experience of people working in such an environment is very joyful because again you are giving an opportunity for every employee in the organization to contribute to something, and therefore he feels very joyful being part of that group. Okay, so that's what I mean by creating value as a powerful context for selling. That's what I mean by that.
Thank you so much for shedding light on the topic, sir. So, correct me if I'm wrong. What it basically means is to surpass the 40-year timeline that any company has, the prescription for that is there. So, uh, it would be right to say that companies should sell holes rather than selling drill machines, selling solutions. Will that be a right thing to say?
Yeah, rather they can look at companies selling holes rather than very good. It's a brilliant example. I have not thought about it. Very good. Okay.
So moving on to the next question, sir. So, which are some of the companies that are operating from this context, and how has it helped them grow? They were indeed a pioneer in this, the first one.
So if you see those most successful companies in the world today, somewhere over a period of time, uh, they have distinguished for themselves that a sustainability in business occurs when you create value, right? So take for example, and you can see that in different segments. Take for example in the segment of mobile phones. Who do you think is the largest buyer of largest seller of mobiles and makes a lot of profits? Apple, right? Why do you do that? Right? How do they do that? The context, the context there is, or the value that they create is extraordinary user experience. If you watch the videos of Steve Jobs, see, the amount of effort he put in making that product look beautiful, right? The way it can be held, the way it could be displays, even you know, the graphics that he used, and the whatever he says connecting dots, whatever he learned in his lifetime, put that on there. So much of effort in making the user experience wonderful. Has people be proud of owning a iPhone, right? Apple phone. So when those releases happen, they are in the queue waiting for it. So the Apple doesn't go to a shop and want to sell. It wants people to come to the shop, like as it opens, people are thronging to it because of the value that they bring, right? And the people carry that pride that I have an Apple phone. Now that's one instance of how in a mobile section, which others wanted to give some value, but the thing was more about volumes and market share and stuff like that. Apple actually caused a disruption in by creating that much value. That's one example. If you take automobile Toyota, I think unquestionably today, no matter who's coming in the competition, Toyota has a different position. Everybody loves to own a Toyota. Right? If you look at what is their value, it is enriching lives with the safest and the most responsible way of moving, people. And in that context, if you see the way the design is all very highly safety oriented. Toyota cars are very safe, and they bring that in every aspect of what they do. They are affordable, they are safe, they are high quality, and you feel proud to own a Toyota. So, do they sell cars, or do they sell enriching
Experience.
life? People buy a Toyota car to enrich the quality of their life. They don't buy a car ultimately. Right? Same thing if you look at in automobile sector, Harley Davidson. Harley Davidson, if you ask, what do you sell? They say we sell lifestyle. So you don't buy a Harley Davidson bike because I want to move from this place to that place. You want to buy a Harley Davidson bike because you want to have a different lifestyle. So they sell lifestyle. So you don't ask how much does it cost, how much kilometers mileage it gives. You never ask. You just want to have a Harley Davidson bike.
Yes.
Because you see that improves your lifestyle. Airbus, in the aerospace sector, Airbus really had a higher market share compared to the Boeing because their context was sustainable aerospace with safety. And they came up with this new product, Neo, which for a certain distance it could consume way much low energy that any other plane could offer. And then they have booked all around. And still, Boeing has not been able to respond to that kind of a requirement, right? So you can see that in aerospace. Okay, I'm from Schneider Electric, so I have to really talk about how Schneider Electric has been addressing this. So we have been designing product to create a sustainable world, okay, with the commitment to net zero emissions. So all that we design is to see that product actually helps customers to reduce carbon emissions. And we have come with a whole range of digital technologies today, which will enable do that. And we are seen by customers as a partner to fulfill the same intention they have. They also demanded to create a sustainable world, and they see Schneider as a partner in, doing that. So Schneider is highly regarded. If you go to I have seen that. After I joined Schneider last 4 years, wherever I go, you're from Schneider. There's a completely different way they listen to us because they know that here we are out there to partner them into making something extraordinary happen. Let's take from a country point of view. Okay, country also can be seen as an organization. Bhutan is the only country today who has a gross national happiness index While all the organizations, all the countries have a gross domestic product as their measurement of success, Bhutan runs as gross national happiness index, right? So the way they approach to the society is how happy can we make our population feel or citizens feel. So what they drive, what they provide, everything comes from there. And I imagine, and they're, if you're in the Asian continent today, they're the most happiest country in the world.
Yes.
In the Asian continent, of course, in the world level, Finland is the highest, most happiest country. But Bhutan, such a small country, they have taken the courage. Actually, see these things. What I talk about requires a lot of courage and a lot of conviction that if something has to stand over a long period of time, value is what important is, not profits. Right? So that should be sufficient to get an example at different segments, right?
Yes. So moving on, so this question basically entails what are the steps and what is there a predefined framework to apply this model into an organization? So how does a company inculcate this habit into their value system?
Very good. So first and foremost, it requires a very strong management conviction that to look at why do we exist. See, this question is called the reason for existence of an enterprise. What is your reason for existing as an enterprise? Keep profit aside, definitely. That's you ought to be profitable, you ought to be sustainable financially. But what is it that your reason for existence is really about? The management have to really question this and make that as a fundamental context for operating. Right? Everything should be guided by it. And so that becomes their vision and that becomes their commitment to fulfill on it. And this is what you see, again quoting Steve Jobs, he was so committed that whatever comes from Apple will have a high user experience. Period. Nothing more than that. So everybody is oriented towards that, right? So a strong vision of the reason for the existence of the enterprise and the commitment of the management is the first step. So choice of who should be in the management, or if it's there, everybody aligned to that. That becomes a driving factor for the management team to operate from. That's one. Second is that's not enough. Then you need to create an organization culture oriented towards it. I say that right from the managing director to the person on the gate, the security on the gate should be aligned to that vision. Right? And you can see in different organizations the way you are treated at the reception, what the organization. Recently I was invited by Shell to draw keynote address, and I saw that happening at the reception. All the value systems were expressed at the reception, and the value systems were expressed when they introduced me to the HR introduced to the group to talk. The first thing she talked about is, okay, welcome everybody, but let's get aligned to what's the vision of Shell. So she actually spoke about the vision of Shell before the program even started. And I found out that that's how they practice it. So they are creating a culture in the organization aligned with the values of the organization. And on the other side, I've seen most people talk about, or most organizations talk about their values, but the values are only on the internet. It's not in action. So coming back about this context, organizations have to then have this ensure or create a culture consistent with that. Okay, and then the third important point is culture is not enough. A process and system should be aligned to that. Take again Toyota as an example. Okay, if you give a service, for your car for service to Toyota, you get it done in 1 hour. You get it at the lowest rate that anybody can serve your car, right? And that's what they do after sales as well. So they have created a service process that will ensure that it happens speedily, because they know that if you don't have a car for more than an hour or 2 hours, most people, when you see your car for service, the whole day is gone.
Correct.
But they know you just go give your car, go out for a coffee, 1 hour later your car is ready. Why? Because they know the value that brings to you. That when you have that car, in a day, throughout, makes a big difference to your quality of life. And enriching life is in that level, at a service level, they would like to enrich in your life, quality of life. So it has to come into a process and a system. I give you another example. I was in a hotel, a 5-star hotel in Chennai, and 6 of us had ordered for lunch, and there was a main course, and one of the dish came with the main course with three small papads, small papads. And then there are 6 of us, and the three papads. You know how difficult to share. And the small ones. You want to bite, cut it and share. So the guy, the manager there, I called him. I said, I have a feedback for you. What's the feedback? I said, look, the chef inside the hotel does not know 6 people are ordering this dish. Now, if the waiter over there sends that, uh, if we can give those three small papads extra, it could create value to the customer. He would have conveyed to the chef, and the chef would have put three more papads, and small papads. It doesn't even cost 1 rupee to the organization. But the way we would have felt it was great. So that's a good idea, sir. I'll give a feedback. Then he went. Then I suddenly thought, again, look at this culture over here. If this man got it right now, right there, he would have gone and got those three papads and would have made me happy, right? But he took it like for a later date, and that talks all about that culture, right? How customer orientation is the second thing, but the process doesn't allow him to do that. The system doesn't allow him to do anything out of that, so he gets bound by that. But if you go to a smaller restaurant and say that you order an idli extra, that fellow will come with an extra chutney also. You don't even ask for it.
Yeah.
The culture is there that the founder said, "Dekh lo, look at those people that we served well." I said, that culture drives. So a process and system will ensure, oriented to that, will ensure that the culture is sustainable. Lastly, I would say a good feedback mechanism is very important. Like you take feedback from the stakeholders, continuous process, and to see are you in alignment with delivering that value or not. Right? Sometimes we feel I've done a great job, but the customers have a completely different experience. Right? So all stakeholders, if you can take or if there is a good feedback mechanism at play, this will make the implementation of it sustainable. So these are 4 points, major points I thought could make the implementation quite sustainable and successful.
So, sir, as far as I can understand, not only on paper do the values have to be set, but the alignment of the hierarchy of the organization.
Yeah.
For example, if the receptionist, the waiter that you gave an example of, he cannot go out of his SOPs and just because of his whims and fancies, he cannot give it. He'll have to be answerable. So some flexibility, some
empowerment,
and the hierarchy size, the steps or the positions that he has to go through to make that change effective.
By the way, I'm not promoting Taj, but if you go to a Taj restaurant, the waiter is completely empowered to serve you what is needed and required at that moment. That's an example of how it can be done. Yeah.
So, sir, moving on to the next question, what are some of the barriers or challenges that deter companies or the companies avoid in implementing this solution?
Very good question. See, the biggest barrier is the human being itself. And why do I say so? Is that the individuals or human beings like us, we operate from a boundary. Okay, a default boundary. The default boundary is me and mine. Everybody operates. Me, our, mine, whatever, connected with that. Which, the MIT professor Otto Scharmer very clearly says, it's the context of ego. Ego means operating from boundary. Right? And if you see all that's happening in the world today is coming from this divide of ego. Right? There's a difference between the way we treat the environment. the state of environment today, right? Why it's happening? We are all exploiting the environment, the planet. Why? I want to survive. Let the environment, the planet go to hell, right? So there is a divide of I or we. So that's one thing. If you look at on the economy, there are 58 people in the planet who have 50% more wealth. 50% of the wealth of the planet is owned by just 58 people. A bus full of people own 50% more wealth of the planet today. Can you see the divide, economic divide? Why? Because I want to be as rich as possible. Right? That's how we operate. And there's a divide of people themselves. There's a fundamental divide: who I am today, who I want to be tomorrow, and due to which there's a lot of suicides happening in the planet. According to a study, around 800,000 people die every year committing suicide, more than people dying out of war or pandemic. Why? Because there's a divide between themselves. If you notice all that, where is fundamental the divide is coming from? It's coming from operating from a boundary, and we call it ego. Ego is a boundary. So that's one thing. So what is required then is to shift from operating from a boundary of ego to eco, which is letting go what I want, right? What we want at a department level or an organization level or a state level. If you look at politically, my state has to be bigger than your state or more prosperous than your state, right? Or from party levels, if you look at our party should win, your party should not win. To our country should be the richest, not your country. So if you start looking at that, if you shift that, and so if you start looking at the world from the eyes of others, that's called eco. Shifting eco is shifting from ego, what I want to see how you see the world, right? So, or business parlance, we can say shifting from what I want to do to looking at the world from the eyes of the market, from the eyes of the customer, right? That's a challenging thing. We never see from the eyes of others. We always have this very good thing called I have to be empathetic. Empathy is putting myself in other shoes. It's all good talk, but we really don't implement ourselves to really. If I have to be in other shoes, what do I do first? I have to get out of my shoes, right? How do I get out of my shoes? Do I know that I'm in a shoe already? What shoe am I in? I have to give it up. I have to recognize that. I have to give it up, and then only I can get to your shoe. See the world you see it, right? That's a barrier in implementation because most people don't by default do that. Uh, the other important thing is people need to be really open. Open to what? Open to the art of letting go. What they feel is right about the view about the life that they have. They have to develop being open to let go, right? And engage themselves in getting more collective views, different stakeholders. What is your view? What is your view? Different consumers. What are their views? It's called more like what we call as willing to sense what's happening in the field that I'm operating from. If I have to sense what's happening in the field, I have to let go what I already know about it, my judgment about it. Right? Yes. I have to let go my judgments, my right views, or so-called very sacredly held views. I have to let go. Be really open and interested to learn what's really happening over there. And that's a challenge for most people. We're not trained to do that. And then it requires a new kind of leadership also. Right? A leadership based on eco. A leadership who have the ability to sense what's happening in the field. So these three things requirement actually poses a challenge for the implementation of it. But not to lose hope. It is available. This kind of education is available. MIT, for example, openly gives this education free for all students. Anybody who wants to learn. It's called Theory U. If the readers of the listeners of this video can look up Theory U on MIT website. It talks a length about how you can operate as an eco leader. What does it require? What are the skills you require? Right? So uh, you can look up for that. And so there's not to lose hope, not to feel bad, but I'm telling you that there is a huge possibility that awaits the world if businesses and organizations start developing themselves from doing business what from an eco context rather than from a ego context. Yeah, that's what I was saying.
Thank you so much, sir. So, it would be right to say that if we all move on from the fact that we think we are all a part of a rat race, and we get out of that notion and we just apply a little bit of a human touch to things,
Yeah,
it would be a starting point, would you say?
absolutely. Very, very well articulated. Thank you.
So, sir, adding on to this, so what are some of your personal experiences in applying the solution?
Yeah, I think that's another good one because I might talk, but if I don't have an experience of it, it doesn't make any sense, right? So, two things I will take from a current context of working with Schneider only. Now, Schneider has implemented this digital technologies to make customers sustainable, right? We call it eco structure. By the way, I spoke about ego to eco, and very coincidentally, Schneider's digital technology solutions are called eco structure. What does it do? It actually enables customers to using technology to have to take data from the environment and give him solutions to save on energy, right? Save on increase productivity, etc. So make it more environment friendly. Now it's good, but I just looked at the implementation of that. It requires Schneider Electric to train every employee in this context because traditionally we are not doing it. Right? This is just 2018 we launched this new range of products because of IoT coming up and sensor technologies coming up, cloud computing coming up, mobility coming up. We used all that to create this new platform uh, called digital platform. So the challenge was how do we really implement it in the division that I'm in. We call it Schneider Service Division. I saw the vice president of the division himself for the last whole year took a personal responsibility to ensure every employee was trained in this. He used to make his time available that those employees would come and present to him how they would actually present this golden idea to the customer. See, you have to shift your context. If you have to, so the traditional way of selling products had to be given up. They had to learn from what value the customer would get if they implemented this. They trained themselves in that, and they had to present to the vice president, right? And the vice president would, his time is very precious, but he would sit down with all of them, and in 1 year he covered around more than 950 employees. Can you imagine the time he spent? And that's one experience. I would say how when the commitment to eco comes in, how a leader would alter himself and make himself more available to that commitment. Second, in my business, which is called education, the purpose. While we started, we thought, okay, Schneider Electric does a lot of products which we can make available to students so that they can learn these technologies to become more employable. That was the initial thought process. Then we said, what's the context here? The context was creating an ecosystem of digitally competent engineers. So we shifted a context from selling something that we have, which of course we thought will make value, to create an ecosystem itself who can be empowered in a way that they are industry ready, they are always updated with the technology, and they are employable. So we started selling products to offering curriculum upgrades, right? So suddenly we became a partner to all the educational institutions. We started becoming partners to the government institutions and all that because they saw, look, Schneider is interested to contribute to us to upgrade the curriculums such that their industry, the students who go through it are industry ready and therefore they are employable. So they are their quality goes up and they are ready and they have a higher quality of job. And instead of that, focusing only on that value that we wanted to give, our business is just shooting up. Like today, we're not able to sit in our office. We're getting calls and they see there's somebody really catering value to them. And that's what we did when we shifted our context, from ego to eco. So that's, of course, I can say several, but paucity of time, there's no limit to my personal experience on this. Right? Yeah.
So this will be the eventual question. So, what can education in business management learn from this? What are some notes that we can take, and what are the ways in which B schools also can inculcate this?
Very good. Very, very good. I think some of the universities abroad have actually included this curriculum called systems thinking. Do you have it here in Christ?
No,
Systems
not yet.
thinking. Yeah. So, systems thinking is actually an access to create this kind of environment. Okay. So, I would say a business could actually start including systems thinking as a subject matter for all management graduates. It requires business managers to develop abilities to sense what is needed required. So, system thinking will help the business manager to think, how do I sense what is required in the field? It requires deep listening skills. See, one of the biggest blind spot for human beings is to be aware that we don't listen.
Yes.
What do we listen? We always listen to our commentary in the head about what we see, what we experience, and all that. Because that commentary is going ongoingly, we don't listen to what's happening over there, right? But systems thinking requires deep listening skills, which means recognizing your commentary, suspending that commentary, and really be interested to know what's happening. So it requires deep listening skills. So that's the benefit of systems thinking, and it will help business managers to create systems and processes in line with the systems point of view, right? From the whole, rather than from the individual. And what is the benefit of that? The benefit of that is to contribute to the quality of the design, right? So when you design a product, you will design not from what we want or what I want, from what this environment wants, right? Because and it will meet the market needs. It will make it more environmental friendly, right? And therefore, it increases customer satisfaction hugely, right? So that's what it'll enable. But as a parting note, I want to say, when people are trained in systems thinking, it makes them a better human being
Yes.
completely, because he is oriented to think from what others want, and it will, as an individual, help you to create better relationships around you. See, a human being's life is all about the quality of relationship. But if you are a human being who is so interested to know what's happening with you, you know, what are you dealing with, and able to sense that, your quality of relation is very high, and I think that will fulfill you as a human being, right? So, systems thinking is what I would recommend. Any management organization can start taking it and start seeing if they can include in the part of the curriculum. Yeah.
So, sir, I would like to add to this point. So, if we as humans stop listening to respond and rather listen to imbibe the things the other person is saying, it will be a great starting point. That
Right.
correct?
Absolutely correct. I think you've been listening to what I'm saying there. Very good.
So, that is all the questions that we have for today. I thank you really from the depths of my heart for blessing us with your presence today. This conversation has been nothing but helpful and fruitful for us. And thank you so much.
Welcome. Thank you very much, and thank you, your team. And I know you students are doing this. It's a wonderful job that you're doing. I think this could be a good benchmark for various other colleges, how students can take leadership in developing knowledge for students, right? That's one thing good. And I want to thank Christ University for hosting this. Thank you so much.
It has been a pleasure, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.